Hello there, it's Sharon Jameson from the Jameson Group, and today is July 10th, and it is my birthday, and I am turning 50 for the second time, not third time, who knows? But I am so excited to be here. And my friends asked me what did I want to do for my birthday, and one of the things I enjoy most in my life is spending time with people to learn about people, to learn from people, and to learn with people. So I'm so excited that you're here to spend my birthday with me. So thanks so much for being here. Hey, Janice. And so what I wanted to do today is that I believe that 50 is one of the best times in a person's life. And I believe that because after around 50, you have had enough success and enough failures, you have seen enough magic and enough messes, you have had enough adversity and enough accomplishment that you really start understanding what life's about. And you really start understanding on how to show up for yourself in a profound way. So it's something about being in the world a half a century and some that gives you not only the information, but the wisdom to be your best self and the wisdom to connect with people and the wisdom to make a contribution in the world. So what I wanted to do today is to share some life lessons that I have gained over these 50 plus years being alive. Because what I have learned from my life and from spending time and having the privilege to coach clients for about 30 years is that something happens around 50, between really 45 to 65, that really propels people and catapults people to be their highest self. So if you're in the Dare to Soar Higher group, I did put a worksheet there so you can follow along with me. But if not, I'm going to be using some teachings that I think are really critical to helping us as we are 50 and 51 and 52 and 53 on up, so that our second part of our life can be really better than the first part of our life. Because I believe the second part can be better because now you have not only information, but you have ammunition to make the best decisions that make your heart sing. So the first thing, principle I want to point out is on page 98 of my book, Not Dare to So Higher. And again, these are lessons that I just want to learn, that I want to share. So if you have the book, please follow along with me. And on 98, the lesson that I think that is so critical for all of us to learn that I wish I would have known in my 20s and my early 30s and is this. And it says, living a lie will make you die. When preserving your public image becomes more important than living authentically, you will eventually self-destruct. And I wish I knew that in my 30s and 40s, because I think myself and many of my clients, for so long, we live lives that we don't really enjoy. We start to be who people want us to be. We try to accommodate and appease and please people. But what I have learned is that when you can't do what you want to do, say what you want to say, love who you want to love, and navigate in a way that makes you honor who you are, you die. You die little by little. You start to dissolve. You start to disintegrate. You start to dilute your power. You start to really become disempowered because you start betraying yourself. So you lose your self-esteem. You lose your self-confidence. And it's so gradual that you don't really realize until one day you show up and you're like, how did I get here? And why am I married to this person I don't like? And why am I at this job that I absolutely hate? And how did I end up living in a city that I absolutely detest? Because we don't realize that we make choices based on the needs, the expectations of others. We make choices many times based on societal norms and programming and conditioning. If you think about it, all our lives in our 20s and 30s, we have been managed and molded and punished and threatened and programmed and conditioned to be people that have nothing to do about who we really are. And so I want to offer three things that I think is so important to help us, help you, help all of us get to a place that we really love ourselves and like ourselves, and we liberate ourselves in a way so that we can be our best selves. And these are the 3 steps I share with my clients. The first step is that I think we need to get clarity. I wish I had this in my 20s and my 30s, but when I mean clarity is to know who you are without your stuff, to know who you are without your degrees and certifications and your cars and your money and your certificates and all your popularity. And who are you at your core? And getting clarity is so hard because it's a process where we're gradually peeling away all the layers, all the conditioning, all the needs, all the expectations, so we can show up as who we really are. Sometimes we have to reintroduce ourselves to ourselves because we have been playing roles all our lives that people wanted us to play. And when we have played some of those roles so long, we don't know who we are at our core. So we have to get clarity. And these are 3 questions that I work with my clients to help them challenge some of their ways of showing up to get clarity. The first question is, 1, what's working for you? What's working for you in your life that makes you feel good, that makes you feel effective, that makes you feel successful? What's working for you? And also what's working against you? Because many times we don't realize that what's working against us are the people that we are trying to play with, people that we're trying to marry, jobs that we're trying to be in positions that are too small for our big dreams and personalities. What's working for you? What's working against you? Well, here's the hard question. What's working as you? What's working as you? Because we often wear masks. We have our public self and our private self and our work self and all these different selves that sometimes we get lost in this schizophrenia and we don't know who we are. So who's showing up as you that is allowing you to function in society? And don't ask yourself from a place of judgment. Ask yourself from a place of self-reflection. What's working as you? And then the last thing is what's working in you. So many times with me and my clients, we realize that what's driving their lives is fear. What's driving their lives is insecurity. What's driving their lives is craziness. What's driving their lives is dysfunction. So we have to ask ourselves, what's working for you? What's working against you? What's working as you? And what's working in you? What is driving your behavior and what's affecting your ability to show up in the world? That's the first one. The second question is, what are you good at? That's what we ask ourselves in our 20s and 30s. But in our 40s and 50s and 60s, we ask ourselves, what are we good for? So it's what do we get at versus what are we good for? Now, what's the difference? What are we good at is really about our skills and our talents, right? That we know that we are because we have been successful in corporate America or in our business. What are we good for speaks to our purpose. And as you are shifting from your 20s to 30s or 40s and 50s, you really go to a place of how can I contribute? How can I contribute to myself? How can I contribute to society? How can I contribute to the world? So the question is that we have to ask ourselves to get clarity. What are you good at? But the question is, what are you good for? And what you are good for will drive you to make sure that you are living your purpose. Because after you have lived 50 years, it's your time to do something that means something to you and not that something that means something to everybody else. And the third question is, what do you know versus what do you feel? What do you know versus what do you feel? Now, why is that important? Most of our 20s and 30s, we have been taught to not believe our intuition. So we are always trying to really work from a place of our intellect, our intelligence, our information. But as we move to our 40s and 50s, for us to do what we really feel passionate about, we have to move from what do we know to what do we feel. And what we feel is what will make our heart sing. That is where our joy will come from. That is the place of our contentment. And it's good if you can blend those together, what you know and what you feel. That's where you really want to be. But if not, those are the questions. What do I know? Because the challenge is we have been taught all of our lives to believe things outside of us. The media, the news, programming, society. We have been taught to look outside of ourselves for truth, but the truth really lies in us. Our true force self lies in our souls. It lies in our spirits. So we have to relearn how to hear and to dial up our intuition, because our intuition is where our truth lies. So when I think about what do I know at 50 plus, is to get clear, know who I am, know who I am not, so I can embrace the truth and release every lie, every label, every limit that has me living in bondage, that has me living lower than my expectations. So clarity is the first thing. The second thing is courage. Now, I hear a lot of people to say, "Oh, I'm courageous." Well, maybe, maybe not. Courage is a process, and we become courageous when we start to trust ourselves. We become courageous when we can do what we know we need to do without applause, without acknowledgement, without validation, without approval. You are courageous when you can stand up and stand alone without anybody's approval, when you can follow your own conscience and not the crowd. And it is a process because we have been programmed to do what people want us to do. We have been punished for living in our truth. People have punished us, people have withdrew their love, people have withdrew their time and their talent. And so many times we have been manipulated to be what people want us to be based on who we know we are. But what I know about being over 50 plus is when you walk in courage, that's when you really have power. When you tell people, this is who I'm going to be with you or without you, that's when you feel empowered. That's when you feel equipped. That's when you feel self-love. So I think it's so important for us to get clarity, get courage, and we have to ask ourselves. These are three questions I always ask my clients to challenge themselves with. The first question is, who do you need to become, and who do you need to be free? What do you need to become, and who do you need to be free? Because so many of us are living in lies, trying to accommodate everyone else, and we are dying inside. I have so many clients, for example, who are doctors and they hate their jobs, but they became doctors because their family wanted them to be doctors, their friends wanted to be doctors, and now they're 51, 52, 53, living a life that's not even their own. And now they're having to make some changes and some choices. That's the first question with courage. The second question is, what keeps you from walking in your own freedom? And I think we have to really ask ourselves that question, because when we understand what keeps us in bondage, when we understand what keeps us caged, when we understand what keeps us in the straitjacket of the status quo, we're able to identify it and get out of it. Sometimes we don't even know that we are being pimped, that we are being that we are acting as puppets and pawns and parrots. We think that we are making our own decisions, but we're being manipulated, and we don't know it. So that's another question I ask for people to really challenge themselves. And the third thing is commitment. After you are clear about who you are and who you're not, after you are willing to say, I'm going to do what I want to do with you or without you, what are you going to do to stay committed to yourself? Because in life, for you to do who you want to do and you to be who you want to be, sometimes you have to make trade-offs. There's this saying that sometimes you have to give up to go up. And sometimes we have to give up some comfort, or to give up some popularity, to give up some peace, to give up something so we can be our authentic self and live our truth. But when you really think about it, what does it take? What does it matter if we gain the whole world and we lose our souls? That's why at 50 something, I'd rather have peace than popularity. I'd rather have meaning than money. I'd rather have my own sense of self versus pimp myself for success. And that's something I didn't know in my 20s and my 30s. But it's something about 50 and 51, 52, when you say, look, I have lived my life according to somebody else's rules and regulations and rubrics, that I'm going to be happy, even if it means I have to be happy alone. And that's a very powerful place. And I just want to say this. When we know who we are, know who we are not, we are powerful. So the question is, when we know our true identity, we have a choice. And the choice is that we can keep acting as if to be somebody else, or to activate who we are. That's the choice, acting or activation. And I hope at 40 and 50 and 60, that's when we start activating who we are, because that's when we realize, you know what, we don't have a lot of time left. And that's when we also have wisdom, that we won't sell our souls to the highest bidder to be liked. So that's the first thing. Again, living a lie would make you die, and that's on page 98. If you have that with you, that's a message that I think is really, really important. The second message that I have learned, it was a hard lesson in my early 30s, is to not compare myself to people. I think comparison is a thief. And up to my 30s, I always compared myself to people, and I always felt less than. I felt ugly and stupid, and I was too fat, I was too black, I was too this, I was too that, because I was listening to society tell me who I was not, and I didn't see people are affirming who I was. And so I didn't really give myself the affirmation. But it's something about 40, 50, 60. You like, look, this is who I am. Take it or leave it, right? But this is what I want to say. I spent so much of my 20s and 30s lamenting over who I was not, that I failed to leverage who I was. And if I can tell my 20-year-old self, a 30-year-old self something, I would say them tell myself, don't grieve over what I am not. Be grateful about who you are. And that really came to me in I guess my early 30s. I had finished graduate school. I hadn't had a baby yet, and I wanted to be this aerobics instructor because I was a cheerleader and very athletic, played basketball or whatever. And I couldn't get anybody to hire me. And people were telling me, you're too fat, you too this, you too that. And even though I had a great corporate job and I had finished graduate school, I wanted to teach aerobics, right? And nobody would hire me. And I beat myself up for months until something just clicked. And I said, Sharon, listen, why are you upset? Go to places where nobody else is going and win there. And I shared the newspaper articles, I guess, on Saturday on my page. But what I did was I said, forget it. I'm not going to try to beg a club to hire me. I went to the churches, I went to the cancer centers, I went to the hospitals, I went to the hair salons, and I started teaching aerobics. And I didn't even know what I was doing. But I would go to the churches and put on some gospel music, and we would do gospel to Walter Hawkins and Andre Crouch and Richard Smallwood. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I would put on some drums and call myself teaching African aerobics. I don't know what I was doing, but nobody else didn't know. I didn't know that I didn't know what I was doing. And I was able to build not only a business, but a practice, and then got hired and traveled the Caribbean. But it taught me something. All that time I was really lamenting because I didn't feel like I was enough. But I didn't use what I had. So what? They said I had, my hips were too big. I found some place that liked my big hips, that liked my big mouth, that liked my big teeth. I found some place where I can dance and holler and pray and preach, and people start paying me for it. And that was one of the times I said, you know what? I would never bemoan who I was. I would never lament of all the things that I was not. It taught me, Sharon, like yourself. And that's what I want to tell you and my clients, like yourself. There's so many wonderful things about who you are. And people grieve so much about who they are not that they don't be grateful for who they are. And it's something that you learn in 40 and 50 and 60s, that who you can't change some things about yourself. So celebrate it and maximize it and optimize it. And so that's one of the lessons that I will tell all of you, and I tell my clients, and I have to tell myself, use what you got to get what you need, because what you have is enough. Use what you got to get what you need, because what you have is enough. We are equipped beyond capacity and ability, and that's something that I hope that you feel in your heart and feel in yourself, because you are enough. So that's my second big message that I've learned after being 50 for the third time. The third thing I learned that was so critical is the importance of being evenly yoked. And I think on page 131 I have it. And if you're in the Dare to Soar Higher group, you'll see this in the handout I gave you. And it says, be equally yoked. Your inner circle should consist of people who are emotionally mature, spiritually equipped, mentally sharp, so that they can walk confidently in line with your greatness. Can I tell you, it wasn't until I got older that I understood the importance of being evenly yoked. I was so um insecure in my 20s. If somebody had a pulse, I was like, cool, that's all I require. But as you get older in your 40s and 50s, you move from wanting a person to just have a pulse to a purpose. Because I realized if a person did not have a purpose, they could not only serve themselves, but they really couldn't help me. And as I got older, I realized that as we're picking people in our lives, to be okay with knowing that even though there are many people available to you, everybody's not suitable for you. And and we have to be able to discern availability versus suitability, lest you pick people in your life who can hurt you and not help you. Because what we always have to remember is relationships are like elevators. They can take you up or they can take you down. They can build you or break you. They can help you. They can be a blessing or they can be a burden. They can celebrate you or they can crush you. And it's so important to pick people who are not just friends. I call them loving, loyal stakeholders. A person has to be invested in you. And I know that at 50 plus, a person cannot be in my life and walk with me if they're not invested, not interested, but invested. I want them to be invested in me and I want to be invested with them because we time is of essence now. I don't have time to be playing around. I don't have time to be trying to make you like me. I don't have that time, and none of us do. So it's so important as we get older to understand that it's important to be evenly yoked. And there's a couple of things I think that is important. Before I say that, I want to share a story. One of my mentors told me. They said, Sharon, having friends is like being a bus driver. You're driving a bus, and in life, you have to make sure you get the right people on the bus and get those people who are on the bus in the right seats. And if you get the right people on the right bus in the right seats, you can drive and go far in your life. But if you get the people in the wrong seats, instead of being an opportunity, those people will become your opposition. And I really believe that. And then he also told me in life, make sure that throughout the different stages in your life, you have to stop the bus and people have to get off. And if people don't have to get off, you have to kick them off. And I never really believed that, but it's so true because different stages and different seasons in your life, you require different types of people. And we have to make sure that we don't use loyalty as a leash because sometimes we lose loyalty as a leash. And I said this Saturday, a leash becomes around our neck, and every time we want to move forward, the person pulls us back into mediocrity, pulls us back into average, pulls us back into being less than what we are capable of doing. And we got to be careful that we don't surround ourselves with people who used to know us then. Because if people don't know, are so focused on who you used to be, they can't see what you are now and what you are becoming. And if people can't envision what you're becoming, they can never help you get there. So it's so important that we look at people differently in our lives. And I think there are 5 things I think is important that I have learned in my life and learned with my clients and my customers as to how to discern and decide if people are evenly yoked. The first thing is that it's important to know that people cannot be good friends to you if they have not done their own internal work. Because people who have not done their internal work don't play well with people. They're too emotional, they're emotionally needy, they're emotionally greedy, they're highly sensitive, they can't take critique. And those people will feel heavy and they will become albatrosses around your neck. So we have to be careful that we don't pick needy people and make sure that we pick people who feed us and just not need us, because if not, we will end up depleted. And can I remind you that lopsided love never lasts? So it's so important that we don't be in a lopsided relationship because all ships that are lopsided sink. And we want to make sure that a person has the ability to contribute to us as well as we contribute to them, because our relationships have to be built on mutuality and reciprocity, and they don't have to bring the same thing, but they have to bring something. And we got to make sure that we don't allow people to show up at the relationship table empty empty-headed, empty-hearted, empty-handed, because they're not a partner, they're a parasite. And we don't need parasites in our lives because they take from us, and then we will wake up one day and find ourselves absolutely depleted. And depleted people become defeated people. So we have to make sure that they don't deplete us. And that's why we have to make sure that they are emotionally equipped, spiritually mature. We also have to make sure that people who are that we want to connect with, they have what I call good people skills. They need to understand how to handle conflict and have conversations without being adversarial. And that's a challenge, because I think that some people don't know how to be disagreeable in an agreeable way. They don't know how to be diplomatic without being degrading. And that's a skill. And I think so often in life, we spend so much time on developing our skills that we don't develop ourselves. But we have to develop ourselves, because if you are not able to collaborate and connect with people, you can never contribute with people. Nobody wants to play with you or to work with you or to be in relationship with you if you are a person who has no communication skills, or if you are petty, or if you are childish. We have to remember that our relationship should be fruitful and not fatal. And if our relationships are going to be fruitful and not fatal, a person has to be functional. They have to be able to self-regulate. They have to have a sense of self-mastery. I tell people, if you don't know who you are, how can I know who you are? And if you don't know who you are, I don't have the energy to figure it out. And so we have to make sure that people have a sense of their own self-mastery and their self-awareness and their own self-efficacy. Because if not, if people won't stand on their own 2 feet, they're going to expect you to carry them. And you don't have the energy to carry them and to carry yourself. You will be depleted. And so I think that's really, really important. And then what I want to say about relationships, that I learned this maybe in my mid-40s, that every relationship has to be negotiated. Every relationship has to be negotiated. I think that's something that I had to learn, and I also learned with my clients, is that we all come to relationships with our own set of experiences, our own set of knowledge, our own cultures that provide the framework of how we define friendship, of how we define in healthy engagement. But the challenge is that your experiences are different than my experiences. And so anytime there's two people, there are two different patterns or understandings of what friendship is. So for us to engage in healthy friendships, we have to negotiate agreements. We have to ask questions and make sure that two people are reading off of the same sheet of music, lest you have people who feel that they are slighted because you're not showing up, but you don't know to show up that way because there was never a conversation. I think as I get older, I have those conversations up front because I don't feel like figuring it out, and I don't feel like trying to guess. I think when we are older and hopefully wiser, because some people are older but not wiser, they're just old fools, right? But I'd rather be older and wiser, and to find out how can I connect with people in the way that makes their heart sing, and how can they connect with me, because everybody is different, and we want to make sure that we connect with people in a way that they feel honored, but also in a way that you feel honored, and that's really, really important. So that's my fourth lesson. And then finally, the last lesson that I want to share, that I learned, that I share with my clients, is this whole concept about God. And I'm not going to talk too much about religion, but what I find is that people are struggling, when my clients come to me, are struggling with this whole concept about who God is and who God was. Because a lot of us were raised up in traditions that we learn that God was this scary boogeyman, or we were raised up in traditions like I was, that I learned that God was a white man. And the reason why I have to say that, because I left the church for a while, maybe 7 years, and my father's a minister. I grew up in the church. I played the piano in the church. But since I learned, and I thought that God was a white man, I thought that I wasn't blessed because God ran out of blessings by the time he got to black people. So I thought that the white people got the blessings first, and then the white women got the blessings, and then the black men got the blessings, and then the black women got the blessings, and the white kids got the blessings, and then the black kids got the blessings. And since that was my understanding of God, I always felt like God would never do anything for me, that I would never have any opportunities. I wouldn't be blessed. And I thought that for a long time because I thought I was so religion was so ingrained with sexism and patriarchy and racism that that was my concept. And I left church for a while because I felt that I could, that concept of God, that concept of God's gonna get you, that concept of you going to bust the bottom out of hell, and all these rules. I couldn't even find God to have a relationship with God because there were 10,000 rules, and I could not see God in the midst of the rules, and I left. And I find so many of my clients struggling because we've been taught rules, we've been taught all this religiosity, but we were never taught religion. And so I want to encourage people that as you go through life and get older, to understand and have your own relationship with God. Because our relationship with God is private, but of course, I mean, it's personal, but it's not private. What I mean by that is personal, how you feel, but it's not private because what we think about God should show up in how we function in the world, right? So that's why it's not private, but I mean personal. But we have to understand what we believe. And so often we have been taught just to blindly follow ministers without challenging them as if the ministers are infallible. I don't believe that. I don't believe that ministers are the only ones who can interpret the Bible. And I'm a minister myself. I don't believe that ministers are the only ones that have the corner on God. I don't believe that. I believe that if all of us should be able to love God with our mind, heart, and our soul, which means that we get to critically challenge the word and challenge people and challenge the ministers, and not challenge in a way of rebellion, but we should be able to ask questions. And if something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Because I think so often we are so concerned with following tradition, but all of the traditions that we're following are not even true. So, and I see people struggling when they come to me, people living in denial, living in fear, living in agony because they were taught beliefs that they don't believe, but they're going along to get along, and they're believing, they believe one way, but they act another way. So they live these schizophrenic existence because they don't believe that we are this and that. But all of us are this and that. We can be spiritual and still be, and still have conversations about sexuality. We can still be generous and greedy. We can still be bad and good. We are all of the economies. And when we start living in these polarities where this or that, I think it's dangerous. My pastor said something, Dr. Kenneth L. Samuel talked about that many times the wisdom is somewhere in the middle. And we got to be careful that we don't live in these extremes, that we start to live lies to ourselves, and that we don't start to operate in hypocrisy. Because so often we celebrate hypocrisy and we crucify honesty, and we have to be in a place in our lives, especially as we get older, to understand what we believe and what we don't believe, and know that our beliefs are our own beliefs and they are not rammed down our throats, that we are not being manipulated and being massaged and being threatened and being intimidated to believe things that are really not true. So those are some lessons that I have learned over being 50 plus. And so I just want to leave you, because it's 33 minutes. I didn't know I was going to talk this long. I just want to leave you with a couple of things in mind, that it is so important as we get older to really be clear about who we are, who we are not, to walk in our courage, to do what makes our heart sing, to really really analyze, are we living our lives? Are we living our parents' dreams, our society's dreams, or somebody else's needs? And to make sure that we are living and loving in a way that makes our heart sing. We should have and we should enjoy lives of liberation, a life of freedom, a life of clarity, a life of courage. And anything that makes you feel that you have to take your life and ram it in this box, that you have to conform and you have to contort yourself and morph yourself to fit into somebody else's expectations or what somebody else's want you to be, that's not a life that honors you. And I don't think that's a life that honors God. I think we all are wired to be who we are. And all the times when we try to be something that we're not, we don't honor our divine wiring, we don't honor our anointing, and we don't honor who we are. So on my birthday. I hope, thank you so much for staying with me, and thank you so much for listening. If you're in the Dare to So Higher group, please, the handout is in the Dare to So Higher group. And I just want to encourage you, as I encourage myself, to be true to who we are, to love who we need to love, to decide who comes in your life and who needs to be exterminated from your life, to decide if you want your career. Just because you've been in a career 20 and 30 years, if it does not make your heart sing, leave. You don't have to live a cage existence because your education or your experience says that you have to do something. Honor your intelligence, but also your intuition. Your soul is where your truth lies. And be okay to let go. Be strong enough to hold on, but also be strong enough to let go. And after you have lived a half century plus, the only person you need to hold on to is your understanding of God and yourself, because you have a job to do and you have to God to glorify. And if not now, when? So do what you want to do. Don't have regrets. Live a life that makes your heart sing. Live a life of contribution. Endeavor to be a blessing to others, because the best is yet to come. So I want to give away some books. So if you want to go on my website, www.sharon.jameson, sign up for my Dare to Soar Higher Coaching Guide, so you can get into my mailing list. I do have 5 books now. I wrote the books in 5 books in 4 years. And so if you're interested in any of those, please feel free to purchase a book. Any book that's purchased from here to Friday, I will also send in a free You Can Depend on Me ebook. So I'm going to throw that in for anybody who signs up for a new book. And if you, and I only covered 4 of the things. I have 2 more to cover, and I'll cover those 2 things that are left in the Dare to Soar Higher group. So join our group. And again, thanks so much for being with me today. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I celebrate you. Thanks all of you for supporting me. And thanks so much for spending my birthday with me. It's nothing better that I love to do than to be here learning with you. And thanks so much for making my heart sing. And have a great night. Blessings to you always.